welcome to Food 101. Food, people. Let's talk about food. And today I have my special guest. He's the author of the book Scintilla, and of course, helping entrepreneurs to unlock the original business ideas and turn them into revenue. None other than Mr. Robert Gaines.
Good evening, Daniel. Great to see you again.
Yes, indeed, Mr. Robert. And thank you for being part of Food 101. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for having me on, Daniel. I'm Robert Gaines. I am an author and entrepreneur living in Central Florida. And I'm also a military veteran. I spent 8 years in the U.S. Army and received a business management degree from the University of Louisville. A serial entrepreneur, had a recording studio, an art gallery, and also a marketing consultant. So now I'm a full-time author. My first book, Scintilla, is now in its second edition, and I'm about to, first quarter next year, release my follow-up book.
Yes, indeed. So, do you have an art studio, Mr. Robert?
I did in 2008. I had an art gallery, and
Mhm.
that was fantastic. Yeah, that was at the Contemporary Arts Complex in San Antonio, Texas.
Can you please do come also on my abstract essay because I do feature like you, artists like you.
That's great. I'm more of a curator, and I was selling the art, but I have done some, obviously some visual art as well. Although it's not great, the
Hmm.
background behind me is actually all giant blocks of styrofoam that I painted. When I have more
Nice.
time, I'll do a better job on that.
But anyway, you're on Food 101, and let's talk about your favorite food. What are they, Mr. Robert?
Sure, I'm pretty traditional in that regard. I like a pizza, but of course I'm very specific now that I'm a foodie, and hopefully we'll get to why I wasn't before and how I became one. But yeah, pizza and the Italian sub are just my two comfort food go-tos. And I for those that are into pizza, I do like the New Haven Connecticut style pizza. I always thought it was the Brooklyn style pizza, but I found out later that it's actually a New Haven, Connecticut style pizza
Hmm.
that I like. So I've learned a lot about food over the last few years.
So, what is your first most vivid memory of encountering favorite food, of your favorite food?
Yes, it's strange to say this now, but I'm from a very rural area of Kentucky outside of the city of Louisville, the biggest city in the state. But I remember when the very first Chinese restaurant opened. And back then, Daniel, we're talking the 1980s, this was a big deal. This was
Hmm.
like Chinese food was exotic in the 80s. People hadn't
Yes,
had it before. Now it's you go anywhere and you get it. But
anywhere, yes.
we would go there, and I remember it was like eating something from a different planet because, we're of Irish and German ancestry,
Mhm.
so we, boiled the heck out of all the food at the house, and it was terrible. And here was this egg roll and rice and crunchy and these flavors, and it really excited me. So
Noodles.
yeah,
Hmm.
so it was a big deal to have to be at a Chinese restaurant and in the 80s, and the people were so nice and so polite and very different from fast food. So that was my first real strong memory that's related to food, just how strange and foreign it seemed. And of course, Chinese food is very, fully
Yes.
integrated into US food now.
So beyond just taste, what specific emotion or feeling does food evoke for every single time?
Yeah, I think obviously stuff like chocolate, these I do eat for pleasure, sometimes to my detriment because I really enjoy eating. Savor as much as I can. Sometimes I'm just hungry and I'll get something fast. But yeah, I think it's it's not just the taste of the food, Daniel, which is of course a big thing, but I think there's something fundamental to us as human beings, particularly when we're sitting down at the table with family, with each other,
Hmm.
and we're having a meal together. Because think back when in prehistoric days where we had to fight and go chase the food down, right? And then once we caught the food, we got to sit around the fire. We would talk about the hunt and the food. So there is something deep in our minds, Daniel, that about coming together and breaking bread, so to speak, at a table and having food. So for me, it's not just the flavor. There's also this wonderful social element to it too. So there's, both a physical pleasure and I think a psychological pleasure of food.
Yes, pleasure for sure, pleasure. So, is there a specific person, place, or time in your life permanently linked to this dish or this kind of food?
Yes, I am very lucky to have been to the city of New Orleans many times. I've also been
Hmm.
to New York City, and I've had some. It was, it always seems too busy up there every time I get up there, and it's hard to get into a good restaurant in New York. But in New Orleans, you can walk right into world class restaurants and get a table. And I've been there probably, I'm going to guess about 10 times. Very lucky to have had the time. Had a lot of work kind of in and around the New Orleans area. And anytime I got close to New Orleans, Louisiana, I'd make a beeline, go right downtown, and I would hit all the classic New Orleans restaurants because you have a mix of the French influence, which of course the French are masters of cooking,
Yes.
mixed with this hearty Southern way of cooking food. So New Orleans, I've eaten my way from one side of that city to the other, and it's just amazing. Even some of the best, even though they're known for French food, even some of the best Italian food I've ever had was in New Orleans. So that New Orleans has a very special place in my heart, food wise, because they really know what they're doing.
Yes. And so, Mr. Robert, tell us your experience when you are cooking in one of the five-star or five-star restaurant or Italian restaurant. Tell us what is all these experiences?
Yes, for you, and you're talking about the time when I was cooking, is that right?
Yes, please.
Yes, so that was a happy accident. I actually, I was, quote, "in between jobs," as we say, and I was frustrated looking for a job, and there was an ad for a dishwasher. Now, I already was a military vet and had a degree, but I needed a job, so I took the job as the dishwasher. I didn't know anything about food then, Daniel, and I didn't know that this was a famous restaurant and that the chef was at least regionally famous. So I'm in there washing dishes. I'm not paying attention to what's going on in the kitchen. And they realized, I showed up every day and I was working very hard. And they said, well, let's teach this guy how to cook. I didn't know anything. Both of my parents are blue collar workers, and mom was a pipe fitter, and dad worked auto body. So everybody turned wrenches and swung hammers. We didn't know much about food. And they showed me how to make pasta from scratch, which was very strange. I remember that like it was yesterday. The sous chef, his name's Dave Dixon, and he brought out this mountain of flour, and he created like a little hole at the top. He put one
Mhm,
egg in it and at about a
mhm.
tablespoon of water and a little bit of salt. And he said, okay, it's time to make pasta. And I said, chef, I said, "Where's the rest of the water, brother? There's not enough here." And he says, "You keep squeezing it." And I remember I went home that night, and because I had to make a lot of pasta, my forearms were burning because of the amount of force. And now I understand why these pasta chefs have huge forearms. But yeah, you don't use very much water. That's part of the key to pasta. And everything they did in the restaurant I'm talking about, your audience can look it up, is called Tre Trattoria. They've moved, but they're still open. They've been
Mhm.
open continuously for 18 years, which gives you an idea how good this restaurant is. But yeah, they taught me so many things to cook from scratch. But I definitely remember the pasta because I think that was the first thing they had me do before they trusted me to start doing more complicated things there. Now I didn't become a full-fledged chef, but what was great about it, Daniel, is
Mhm.
they did take the time to teach me how to do things right, and I really didn't get a lot of great teachers like that. So it was a great restaurant, and it was definitely a university level experience to learn about cooking there. Very privileged. Now I understand how good the restaurant is. I'm very grateful to have spent time there.
What a great story, Mr. Robert. People, if you know how to make pasta, I mean to say you're a good cook. So, how's your favorite food ever failed you? A bad version of it, or disappointing experience?
I think the toughest thing is, and there's a lot of all the dishes that just came to mind are baked dishes that are very thick. So it's the lasagna that's not done in the middle. It's the
Mm-hmm.
cake that's not done in the middle. So anytime you're cooking something in a large pan and it's very deep and you put it in. So I would do it's going to sound very strange, but I cook a British dish called toad in the hole, which is really delicious. It doesn't have any toads in it. It's Cumberland like British sausages in a what do they call it? Anyway, it's in a batter. That's what we would say here in the States, and it's really delicious, but it's easy to undercook it. So
Mm-hmm.
those are the big fails. Any big dish in a pan that's going to be in an oven because it's easy to burn it on the outside and not have it cooked on the inside. That's kind of the bane of all cooking. So I'm more comfortable with the stove than I am in the oven because on the stove I can watch it, I can press on it and tell if it's cooked or burned or ready or not. And you can trust your nose more if you're cooking off the stove versus the oven.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And Mr. Robert, let's get poetic. If had to describe a perfect bite of these food using five senses, what would be experiencing?
The thing for me that I really enjoy is texture. So I like crunch. So when I bite into something and I can feel it kind of crunch under the weight of my teeth, like at the restaurant I worked at, the
Mm-hmm.
crostata, which was basically like a miniature apple tart. And it
Mm-hmm.
was really crunchy and crispy on the outside. So I think about texture. Even the famous po' boy sandwich, which has got the fantastic French bread, and it's a little bit crispy on the outside. That crunch when you bite into it, and then that savory taste. I think that's just a magic combination of things, just texture and flavor. I really love it.
Mm-hmm. Oh la la, che buono! They said for the Italian people. So, Mr. Robert, if you compare your book Scintilla to a certain food, where can you compare?
Oh wow. The book has some complexity in there. I would go back to the dish that I like to cook, which is toad in the hole. So it's on its outside, it seems simple, but if you really pay attention to the center, there's a lot of complexity there. So toad in the hole is sausages in like I said, a batter, and then you have to make this onion sauce. So it looks pretty simple, but when you really know what you're doing, you can add a little complexity to add some flavor. So the book is that way. What's interesting about the book is there's actually a section about cooking, even though it's a business book and about how to come up with ideas. I explain process. So I explain why a New York pizza tastes so much better than it does when you get one in Florida, for instance. So
Mm-hmm.
I do talk about food in there because the secret to a good business or a good product has the same correlation to good cooking. The process, it's all about good ingredients and good process, and business works exactly the same way.
Well, scintilla is just like a thought. Something good to taste. People, so try it, read it, and you will taste the thought for sure. So, what is the non negotiable element that makes or break these dish for you? A specific texture or crust?
Sorry, that last part again, Daniel?
Yes, is there a specific texture of a crust or a balance of sauce or a quality of key ingredients
Mm.
for your elements?
Yes, yes. I think probably it goes back to the title of a really great book about cooking, which is I checked it out. I had to make sure I was reading it correctly, so I wrote it over here, Daniel. I've got a cheat sheet, but it's called Salt, Fat, Acid, and Heat. That
See.
book came out in 2017 by Samin Nasrat, and it's salt, fat, acid, and heat. So when you enjoy something, like I said, I like the crunch followed by this really rich umami or savory flavor, which the po' boy sandwich delivers that. The toad in the hole sandwich, a bite of that delivers that as well. It's a very savory. So I like these very heavy, savory, what we would say here in the South, winter foods, like comfort foods. Well, they have comfort foods in the North too. So I think that's the magic combination, um, is when you've got a little bit of fat and the flavor of salt and then acid. And that's why people drink wine with dinner. So you have this
Mm-hmm.
very kind of fatty, tasty meal, but then the wine, which is very acidic, cleanses your palate so that you can enjoy that fatty flavor all over again. So the acid in the wine, or if you drink, let's say Coca-Cola, there's a lot of acid in that. It cleanses your tongue so that each bite has this really amazing. You keep experiencing that great flavor over and over again.
A great flavor. Yes, people, please read it or listen to the book of Miss Amin Nasrat, one of a kind, one of my idol. She's really good cook. So
It's a
where is
great book.
yes, great book indeed. So where is the absolute best place on earth you have ever had it, and what made the version transcendent?
Wow, that's both an easy one and a tough one at the same time. This restaurant is pretty much everything together. Great service. They've been around forever. I wanna make sure I say this right, but it's Antoine's in New Orleans, and if you look on Yelp reviews, some people call it a tourist trap. I completely disagree. Famous movie stars go in there and eat. There were none when I was in there at the time, but the wait staff, here's what's amazing. I think the guy that's the sommelier, which is the wine expert in the restaurant, he started there, like, as a dishwasher and
Uh-huh.
worked his way all the way up to the master of wines, and they have one of the greatest wine cellars in America. So this restaurant's very well known. What you may know Antoine's off the top of your head because that's the restaurant that invented the baked Alaska, which it's
Mm-hmm.
not Alaskan and it's not baked. It's just this really amazing dessert. It's hard to explain. You got to go there and you got to try it. And what's weird is I've eaten there twice and
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't even tell you what specific dish. I think we had something made out of duck there one time, but the food is so good. We share each other's plates and we had a little bit of everything, and I've never had anything bad there. And the service is just amazing. The waiter is usually only taking care of your table or yours and maybe one other table. And the service is like a Michelin
Sure.
like a three-star Michelin restaurant. Amazing people, multi-generational. I think they're on their third generation ownership. It's a very historic restaurant in New Orleans, and I highly encourage people to put that on their list.
Yes, make Alaska people something else to die for, especially this holiday. Try it. It's a lot of ice cream inside.
That's right. That's right.
Lots of different kind of ice cream, especially if you put gelato. Then what else? Different kind of ice cream from Brazil. Oh my goodness! Oh la la! It's something to want to eat again and again and again. So, Mr. Robert, is it enjoying this food is a private ritual or shared social experience for you?
Really both. Once I started working at that Italian restaurant and I developed a palate because I didn't have one before, Daniel. Would eat Velveeta cheese and all this horrible stuff, and I couldn't eat a slice of Velveeta cheese if my life depended on it now. But yeah, since being interested in food is relatively new for me. I didn't grow up being a foodie. I developed into one, which I think is a different path for most people. I both have a very private relationship with food where I'll spend a long time cooking something very fancy or nice for myself. But it's always better if you put in all of that effort and energy and plate it and share it with people to see the a person take a bite of your food and enjoy it like we saw in the restaurant. We knew that all those foods that we were working so hard to create in that great kitchen were going out, and sometimes we got to see the diners enjoying the food, and there's a real rush from that. It's much I'm sure it's the same experience that a musician would experience if they're playing live and the audience responds positively to the music. I see food that same way. So yes, there's definitely a wonderful social element to sit down and enjoy a meal with people. I think it's in our DNA to sit with each other and break bread at a table, so to speak.
Yes. So, Mr. Robert, if you were stranded on the desert island and could only have this one food, how long do you think it would take before you got sick of it?
Ooh, it would take a couple of months. Yeah. Yeah, it would
Couple of
probably take a
months.
couple of months because I could probably eat a good like a Newport, Connecticut pizza. I could probably eat that every day for 3 months, at least one meal a day. And Italian sub, and I should have put a po' boy sandwich in there, which is also kind of a very typical New Orleans food where you've got the French baguette with the fried shrimp inside. Yeah, I could probably have that once a day, every day for a very long time. 3 meals a day, I could probably still do it for a couple of months before I get tired. They're that good. It's just the texture and the flavor just are so perfect.
Oh, yeah, so perfect and delicious. So, Mr. Robert, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in third season, and my food 101 is sixth season this December. Geography 101 Love Letters, Movie 101 Review, Music 101 fourth season, Science 101, Sex 101 in its second season, and My Baby Podcast, Mental Health 101, Law 101, Bible Verses 101, Entrepreneurship 101, and coming this December, Motivation 101. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Robert, finally looking back, if your life were a menu, what course would this favorite food be?
Oh, wow, that's a tough one. What, if it was a manual?
Yes, if it's a menu, your life, what favorite food be?
Oh, if my life was a menu, what would my favorite food be? Comparing to so a metaphor for my life that's a dish.
Mm-hmm.
I would say spaghetti and meatballs, because the meatballs, you got these really delicious, tasty things, and then everything is just an absolute mess below it. So I think that'd be a good, yeah, spaghetti and meatballs. I think that's a good metaphor for my life. A lot of good flavor, but wow, a lot of chaos too. But you gotta enjoy
Mm-hmm.
it all.
Awesome. And Mr. Robert, thank you so much for sharing your favorite food to the world. Thank you, thank you. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your Scintilla itself?
Absolutely. You can get the paperback, hardback, and Kindle versions on Amazon. The first edition of the book is still on Audible, so you can check that out there. The second edition will be available on Audible in about a month. And then if you connect with me on LinkedIn, you'll find out about the upcoming book that I have coming out in April of 2026. And as always, Daniel, thank you so much for the invite. You're a great host, and I always appreciate spending time with you.
Likewise, Mr. Robert, you're one of a kind, so please do come over and over and over to all my podcasts. I will support you 100%. Yes, people, let's support Mr. Robert Gaines, because if you support him, for sure, more and more empowering scintilla will rise. So, Mr. Robert, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel.
More to come, people. See you soon.